You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Time to talk Jays with our Jays full-time insider, Keegan Matheson. Your signed, sealed, delivered, baby.
Plan the parade, baby. I love it. I'm happy to be here. Happy that I'm going to be here. We'll see how the season goes. It'll either be a lot of happy conversations or very miserable ones, but I'll enjoy them either way.
Glad you mentioned parade. I was at the last Blue Jays World Series parade. I skipped school, took the parents' car. My buddies and I drove up, and I still have the pictures. It was far from what it was like for the Raptors parade. So we were like high-fiving guys driving by the backs of cars.
That's tight. That's close. I was a little young back then. We'll call it pre-memory years. But, man, I remember the Raptors parade, and that was unlike anything. I think I was just trying to get to work today, and I was just very selfish, so it annoyed me. But that was pretty cool to be around, man. But
I knew it was going to be trouble when it took them an hour to get going.
Yeah.
Well, according to Max Scherzer, there might be a parade this year because that's why he signed. Sorry, I just got to move a cat here. That's why he signed with the Jays. Is the team said they're going to go all in, and if they don't make the World Series, then it's a lost season essentially.
It's interesting to talk to Max Scherzer. He is as intense a dude as you're ever going to meet. The whole Mad Max persona is real. Like, that's not an act. It doesn't matter if you're making small talk. He is intense. Now, saying he's here because the Blue Jays are all in, yeah, it's probably part of it. I'd assume it's also a little bit to do with the fact the Blue Jays offered the most money. But, hey, at this point of the year, it sounds good. And coming from Max Scherzer, and of course he had other options, obviously. And Scherzer is in what I think is an enviable place if I take myself away from the Blue Jays of it all, which is if he's pitching well and the Blue Jays go on a really cool run, he's part of that. If he's pitching even okay and the Blue Jays suck, he's part of somebody else's run. This could be a, Justin Turner type 4-month stint here where July 31, we're talking about how he's been traded to Team X. But we'll see. He's looked fantastic early on. Like, he has looked really good. That slider of his is just amazing. And, man, again, just to watch him and be around him is incredible. Like, this is a Hall of Famer who has still got a little bit left here. This isn't like Joey Votto last year. Like, this is not one of those last gasp reclamations. Like, when he's healthy, he can still do this. It's just a matter of health for him. And, man, if he can even give them 25 starts, like, that's a huge boost. That's massive.
And they got him not only as a starting pitcher, but also a semi-coach because by the sounds of it, everyone is just there being a sponge around him.
He's a guru, man. And it's interesting to talk to Max about this, too, because he realizes that people hang on every word of his. And he understands, he knows that he's Max Scherzer, which is number one. We don't need to do the false humility like, oh, why do people want to come to me? You won 3 Cy Youngs, you're a Hall of Famer, everyone's going to come to you. And I think he's learned over the last 5-10 years, that when everybody's listening to every single word you say, you can't just let it fly. You need to be pretty intentional because there's going to be 20, 22-year-old pitchers following you around. And if you put 2 pieces of gum in your mouth instead of 1, they're going to do that too. They're going to cling to every dumb little thing that you do as a pitcher. And speaking to a lot of the veteran guys, like a Gausman, like a Bassett, who have in some ways calmed down over the years, maybe a little bit, or gotten a bit more refined, I think Scherzer understands that he can have a pretty big effect on people, but that can be dangerous if you don't handle it the right way. So he's starting out slow. He's not going to come in and say, what's up, I'm Max Scherzer, do what I say. There's a bit of an easing in process. He has Chris Bassett here, who he knows from the Mets, and I think those two get along pretty well. But man, he's an interesting dude to talk to, and pitchers are following him around. That's always the biggest compliment in spring for me, Dan, is when other pitchers go out of their way to watch another guy throw. Like, just a basic level of giving a damn about another guy doing a bullpen session at like 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and there's 20 pitchers behind Max Scherzer. It's incredible.
You must be reminded a lot when you see that, and it must ring a bell to Roy Halladay, what it was like for him in those final seasons and his preparation in spring, where he would read stories. He read the same book every spring training, and guys would follow him around. Guys would quiz him. Guys would all be in the dugout for his starts in spring training, which they were for Scherzer.
Absolutely, because they transcend, like, the guys of that level. They're in a different stratosphere than even Gausman, Barrios, Bassett, guys who have had incredible careers, like top 5% outcome level of careers. Scherzer's something else entirely. And he's done it in so many places. He has won the World Series. He's won the Cy Young Awards. He's done it in different ways, overpowering guys, now lately with a different arsenal. It's so impressive. And a part of this, Dan, too, is that he's made some cash along the way. You know, if you're working next to a guy who's made 400, 500 million bucks, you're probably going to say, okay, what are you doing that's working out for you and getting you paid? And his ability to do that over a lot of innings has just been incredible. And even for me, man, asking him questions, like interviewing players like that, is fascinating for me because...
And you got lost in those two colored eyes.
Man, I don't know where to look, you know? It's... Let's be honest. Over the course of a season, my God, how many questions am I asking? 4,000 or 5,000 questions. They're not all good. I got to be honest with you. They're not all good. And this was one of the first days of camp. And I had been working on a story on Bowden Francis. And sometimes you get a little too eager. And I got a little too eager at this point because I saw them walking together. So I said, man, if I could get a Max Scherzer quote for this Bowden Francis story, that would really be the ribbon on top. So I asked him, Max, you've been watching Bowden Francis. What do you know about him so far? What do you like about his game? And he was like, dude, this isn't real. Like, I've been here for a couple of days. This is fake baseball. We're throwing at 9 a.m. Like, none of this is real. And I realized, okay, I'm way out over my skis here. This is too early. But he's so intelligent to speak to. Once you get him going, my God, he will go. And... for however long it lasts, whether it's 4 months or 6 or 7, Max Scherzer is the Blue Jay. Man, that's pretty damn cool.
I thought maybe because you're a very philosophical guy, I thought when he said none of this is real, then it would have sent you to a different realm and contemplating us living in a simulation.
Man, I actually just finished rewatching Lost, so I'm really tangled up with what's real, what's not. Am I even alive? Is Florida my in-between zone? Have I already died and Dunedin's just where I'm waiting? Who knows? But
well, who knows it's real right now? Ernie Clement, he got a ball in the face.
Man, we were down, and this game was in Lakeland, Florida. And the game was, it's kind of a funny thing how spring training works. The game was not being aired on television. And when he got hit in the face, I was down talking to Jose Barrios, which means that, the entire country of Canada loses witness to what happened to Ernie Clement because I had my eyes away from the field for 2 minutes. But we saw him while I was speaking with Jose Barrios. I suddenly see Ernie Clement out of the left side of my eye, walking away holding a towel over his mouth, clearly not happy. And he got busted up pretty good. Thank goodness he did not have any fractures or a concussion, most importantly. But apparently he's going to play again this week and bounce right back in. You're going to see him. They call it the C flap, kind of that extra chin protector on the helmet. Yep. I guess you can't go full bird cage in baseball, but man, after I think it was a 92-mile-an-hour fastball right off the lips. And I would not be stepping back in that box for $1 million, but he's a tougher guy than me. Hockey player, Ernie Clement, big hockey player.
I have not looked it up, but are Ernie Clement and Ernie Witt the only Ernies to ever play for the Jays?
They have to be. I think they absolutely have to be. Elite name. Okay. Two great players, too.
Oh, the best. They're no Garth Orch, though. Also on my checklist, I was last time we spoke, we talked about the Vladdy contract, and you said you were going to hold off on numbers. The one number I came across was $600 million. Have you heard anything as to what both sides were offering from the Jays and Vladdy's camp?
Yeah, people start to talk slowly but surely. I've been told a number a couple of times that's not, I'll call it not that high, but very high, and not quite solid enough to put out. But It's the number of years is kind of the tangle thing as well. It's a couple of times I'll have a number floated to me from one side, and I'll say, okay, well, is that for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years? Like, who's trying to win this here? The number from David Ortiz came out as well, which was, I think, in the 13-year high 500s range. And man, that's a ton of money. That's a wild amount of money at first base, especially. But if you're Vladdy, why the hell not? He is, if Vladdy's sitting at a poker table right now, just by being Vladdy, making the money he's made and coming from his family, he's already got a big stack in front of him. You can be a little riskier. You can push that envelope a little bit more. Now, will we get to a point 9 months from now where we're saying, holy crap, he turned down this? Or holy crap, the Blue Jays turned down that? Maybe, probably, which is why I think it's in both sides' interest to not leak this out. You're taking a risk. Yeah. You're kind of exposing yourself at least halfway. But, man, this is going to hang over them all season. It's not going anywhere.
They're not talking contract all year, the Jays and Vladdy, but are Bo Bichette and the Jays going to talk contract at all?
Not that I've heard of yet. I spoke to Bo about this early in camp. This would have been about 2 weeks ago, mid-February. And he said he hadn't heard from them at that point. So it would surprise me if that goes into the season whatsoever. Right now, I don't know where I'd put the offer to Bo. I just don't know the number because I believe that Bo Bichette is who he was before last year, which is an incredibly consistent, fun as hell to watch professional baseball player. Like this guy, I am so impressed by following Bo Bichette around the major leagues and the minors coming up in his career. Like I've been around enough guys who get to the big leagues just on talent, but they're lazy and they just kind of let it fly. Bo Bichette works just as hard as the guy trying to make it up from AAA, but he has the raw talent to match it. Last year changed the conversation about him so much. He had multiple injuries. I don't think he dealt with the failures of last year best he could have, and I think he's adapted to that well. But I think he's going to have a huge year, man. He looks incredible. Like, number one, he looks built. He's put on some muscle. But you're seeing that loose athleticism back in the box. And that guy we saw coming up through the minor leagues where it doesn't look like he's watched a hitting video or learned from some guru about the mechanics, but it works, man. And he is such a joyful baseball player to watch when he's really going. And a month from now, when we're getting into mid-April, late April, I think the conversation flips immediately on Bo Bichette. I think people are going to be all the way back in on him, and I think they're going to be talking about his contract really quickly.
Is the goal for the Jays to sign? Do they have enough money? Will they be willing to spend enough money to sign Bo and Vlad, or is it one or the other?
Probably got to be one or the other, which is where this gets tough looking down the road, because you have to make a decision. Let's say where the current values would be, and my God, these could change. Do you want the superstar first baseman, once almost an MVP guy, for, my goodness, let's call it 12, 13 years, around $40 million a year? Or do you want the shortstop, who will probably stay there a bit longer, for about the same term, 10, 12 years, but maybe you're more down in the 25, 26, 27 mil range? And if you do go to Bo Bichette and do that, what else can you get with all that money if you're the Blue Jays? Now, at the same time, when I look at this, I see a team that's invested $500 million in infrastructure the last couple of years, down here in Dunedin and up home in Toronto. And I see a team that's proven that the word budget doesn't really matter, which is why I don't get too hung up talking about payroll for the Blue Jays, because we talk about, is it 250, 270, 290? Well, whenever Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani comes around, that number doesn't seem to matter much. So the telecoms company that owns the Blue Jays, they do have some cash, and I think they've proven that in recent years, which is a very good thing. But it also, for the next few years, is going to put me in a place where whenever I see budgets or payroll being discussed, I'll think, so what? Go out and get the guy. Go out and get both guys. But I think that going after both, pretty unlikely. And they're going to have to make a choice at some point, whether it's this front office or the next one that comes in.
And plus, you look at the Canadian dollar, that might factor in too, because they pay these guys in American dollars. Hey, speaking of American, has the tariff war made its way into Jays camp? Do the Jays players know anything that's going on right now back in the country in which their team is based?
I think some are beautifully unaware, which I wish I could be.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Would be great. The extremely singular focus of a professional athlete does come with some benefits I wish I had. I'm just worried about so many things all the time.
Yes.
Man, and you mentioned the dollar dam. Where I really notice it is on my phone here down in Dunedin, Florida. When I will go out to the bar, maybe just have one domestic light beer, something like that. The bill comes and I pay it in US dollars, but then on my phone pops up the Canadian charge. And oh my God, it's a rough time to be.
It's nuts right now.
It's incredible. But it hasn't made its way into Jays camp too much. Early on, back in mid-February, back when anthems were starting to be booed, things like that, and this was becoming more of a sports discussion, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, a couple players were asked about it. All of whom kind of danced around it, as you'd expect. A couple of whom gave the right answer, which is just, listen, I like Canada, I like Toronto, hope it all works out sort of deal. Yeah. But as this ramps up towards opening day, Blue Jays are the one Canadian team, and Lord, don't I know it, because half my life is listening to national anthems, I feel. There's going to be a ton
every game you hear the American anthem.
Dose, both of them. Bring back the Expos. But it's going to be interesting, man, because those are going to be some full stadiums. And what are we looking at? About 3 weeks until the home opener in Toronto. So maybe Dougie's door-knocking mission in the United States fixes everything. We're all happy by then. I don't know. But
anything, it changes daily. Here, you can tell us this: have fewer snowbirds come down because of the dollar and where it's at?
I've heard some talk about that. I haven't noticed it in the crowds. Okay. I think a lot of that might be kind of next year if it happens, because people who book these trips mostly do it well out in advance. So I think a lot of folks have hit a point. I've heard this from a few people of, listen, like, we booked this trip last October. So yeah, we're kind of ticked off. We don't love this, but it was booked and paid for. We're here now, but next year we're not so sure. I think a lot of
Sandra O'Toole, my mom, she went to Portugal instead.
Wow.
She said, that's way cheaper.
Right. That sounds way better. I should do that next spring. That sounds a lot better.
Hey, guys, let's have camp over in Portugal. Let's be trendsetters.
Take it,
Oh, and actually, it was the perfect climate for you. It was like 17 degrees every day over there for her.
That's the dream. It's getting to the danger zone for me in spring training. It's especially as I'm trying to do live TV hits from in spring training, because in the TV world, we want a nice visual, in the background. And I continue to be told that me hiding in a shaded dugout does not make for good television. So it's a tough gig, I tell you. Thank God for a little makeup. But
you know what you say to the TV people? Just say, it's a new world. It's a new world. Throw out the old norms.
This new lens.
Keegan, thanks for this. We're going to be talking to you every single week. Stay safe, and we miss you back here in Canada.
Love it. Can't wait to be back if they let me back. We'll talk soon.
Oh, yeah, they'll let you back. They'll be like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You trying to take our job?
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.